Welcome everyone to episode 3 of the AdMob Fireside Chat video series, where the mobile ads developer relations team gets together to discuss the latest features, tools, and updates from the mobile ads SDK. Today we're going to bring you a special topic about some of the latest changes we've done to our Unity plugin. As usual, we have Sam, Jill, and John on the call from the developer relations group, but we also have another special guest today. Ed, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is Ed Wang, and I'm a product manager on the AdMob team. I wanted to start off by thanking all of you who have given us feedback on the Unity plugin through our developer forums and our GitHub issues pages. One of the things that we've consistently heard is that you want the AdMob experience to be simpler to integrate, require less code, and have a more native Unity feel. We've been working hard to make this a reality, and we think you're going to love the changes that we've made.
Thanks, Ed. So this feature that we're calling this Unity Ad Placements. And Sam, can you give a brief introduction and maybe a demo on what this feature is and how it works?
So this is a feature for the Google Mobile Ads Unity plugin. And so if you haven't seen that already, then check out our documentation, which I'll link to. But basically, it's a plugin that enables you to show ads in the Unity editor. But it requires a lot of scripting. Basically, everything is done in scripts at the moment. So we've tried to improve on that by adding the ads placement feature on top of it. And so I'm going to give you a bit of a demo to show you what that will look like. So here you can see we have a Unity IDE, and I've got a T-Rex game. So I'll show you what this game looks like in the editor. So we've just got a little dinosaur who runs along, and you have to jump over the cactuses. And if you don't jump over the cactuses, you die. Yeah, so that's the game. Obviously, I'm not very good at it. But the thing we're going to do now is we're going to integrate the ads placement plugin into the game. I have to turn this off. Now, I've downloaded the, well, actually, I'll show you. We just go to here. This is our documentation, and download it. And then we go back to our game, and I just double click the download where I picked it up. And I'll show you the import page. That's actually quite big.
Sam, real quick, as this is downloading, do you want to talk about like when this build is available, and is it available today for people to use?
Yeah, yep. So if you go to our documentation, you can see ad placements right here. It's already public and available. It's in open beta, so anyone can access it. And basically, you just follow the steps, follow the get started up until you you do the download of the ad placements. Then you do the steps here to import and include the SDK and set up your app ID. So that's what I'm going to do now. So you can see this is the import screen for the plugin. These are all the files that you're going to import. So we'll just import those. And so we include the external dependency. I usually hit yes on that one. We include the external dependency manager as part of our plugin. And that's what auto-resolves all your iOS and Android dependencies, like the Google Mobile Ads SDK. So we just import all of that. There we go. So now we've got the external dependency manager as well, which you'll need for your iOS and Android resolution. So the first thing we're going to do is go into settings here, and we're going to, here we go, set up our AdMob and Android app IDs. So just for the sample, I will get these ones here and put them in. This doesn't actually have to work 100%. Okay, so we've set up our AdMob Android app IDs, put your real ones in there. And then the next thing we've got is if you want to go here, you can go Google Mobile Ads ad placements. And you will see we have included some demo ad units for you. So one of the annoying things about the scripting experience is that you have to switch between platforms with if defines or if runtime platform is this, etc., to define your ad units and app IDs. So now you can do it entirely in the editor. So you can see here we've added our Android app ad unit ID and iOS ad unit ID for a banner, for an interstitial, and for a rewarded ad. So these are all pre-configured in the download, and you can then add your own here. And then you can add, it will default to the last thing that is in the list, so you'll need to delete those. And then add your own add unit IDs. So you can select the format and then so forth. But I'll delete that one because I don't need that. And then the other options that you have here, apart from the format, are your whether it's persistent or not. So persistent means that it exists across scenes. So for example, if you want to have a banner that is in your game, regardless of what scene you're in, you would tick this. Otherwise, I would generally not use it. I would just use it per scene. And then auto load. So when you import and include this in your app, then you would initialize the SDK using mobileads.initialize, and that's in our documentation. And so we have an ads manager script. So in our scripts here, AdMob, you can see commented this code out, but I'll add it back in now. I'll put this over here so you can see. Using Google Mobile Ads API. So this is the whole script that you might need. So I'm demonstrating a couple of features here. The main piece of code that you need is initialize, and you get a callback when you call initialize with a net status, which is primarily only useful for mediation, so I wouldn't worry too much about that. But we're also showing the iOS app pause on background API here, and also how to, which does what you would expect it to do, because there's a difference in behavior between iOS and Android. And then we also have the request configuration API here. So this enables you to configure requests globally with, for example, test device IDs, which are obviously different on different platforms. So you might want if defines for that. But yes, so that's how you would define your request configuration. But the only line of code you actually need is this initialize line here.
Hey, Sam, two quick questions. So one, when somebody imports the plugin, they're not going to have this file, right? This file was already part of this test game project.
Yeah, this is a script that I wrote that is part of my game, not something that.
So people need to create their own mono behavior class, right? With start to call this.
Yes. So this is part of my game scripts, and yes, you'll want to add your own mono behavior or add some code somewhere and initialize. Ideally, you want to do it in the start method. I think you can do it in awake as well, I'm sure. I usually put it in start.
My point is the rest of this code is something that if people integrated the plugin before, they are already probably doing all of this, right? And this shouldn't be new to anybody.
Yeah, if you're familiar with the plugin. Okay. Yeah. So while I'm in the game here, you can see I've got a player method, and in here you can see I have a game over Unity event. I just want to point that out for later. And I also have a couple of methods, game over and restart game, which I'm going to reference. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do, having initialized the SDK and included my ad placement settings, is I'm going to right click over here in the game objects, and I'm going to go Google Mobile Ads, and I'm going to add a banner ad. So I'll click that one. And now I have a banner ad object in the game. So if I click on that, I've got an editor here, and the name is banner ad. Now this is the name of the object that you would look up if you need to access this object in the script. But we're not going to do that today. We're going to do it all in the UI. But that's important to note. There's a difference between the name of the object and the name of the ad placement. So here you can see the properties of this object. So ad placement is the first property you want to set, and that's going to be the placement that you have configured in your ad placements panel. So you remember we had 3 placements. One was banner, interstitial, and rewarded. Now I only have one option here, which is banner. If I go and add another banner, then that will show up in this dropdown. But given there's only one banner in my list, that's the only option that I have. Okay, you guys with me so far?
Yep.
Great. So the next thing is we're going to configure the size of the banner. So it defaults here to custom, but what we're going to probably use is anchored adaptive, our previous episode, we talked about anchored adaptive. I think that's a good option to use. If you have a different banner size preference, then these are the options that we currently have. Now with anchored adaptive, I'm just going to go with the default. So current orientation, use full screen width. If I wanted to change that, I can obviously have landscape and portrait. And if I want to change the width, I can also change the percent width of the screen, starting at 50 and going up to 100, obviously. But I'm going to go with full screen. And then add position, I can have, given its full screen width, it's either going to be top or bottom. I'm going to stay with the top. And then I can see as well some callbacks. So all I need for this banner to now work is these settings. So I have a top anchored adaptive banner, full width of the screen with this ad placement. Now, because I configured auto load on this ad placement, I don't need to write any code to load it. If I wanted to load it, then I would use an API in the script, which I may as well show you what that API is. So if I go back to AdMob, what I'm going to do is add using Google Mobile Ads dot placement. And then I'm going to show you go mobile ads dot instance get ad. All right. Now we know that it's a banner ad, so we're getting a banner ad game object. So you have to provide the type there. And then the other parameter for this method is the name. So I think it's called banner ad. And so that would be how I would fetch the ad from, and then that would return me a banner ad game object, banner, oops. And then I can then call banner dot load like that. So that would be how you would load it if you didn't have auto load. But if you have auto load enabled, then as soon as this initialized call completes, it will load your ad. So that's the default behavior. Now I'm going to remove that code. You guys clear on that?
Hey Sam, can you tell us a little bit about how auto loads works for interstitial and rewarded?
Yeah, it works the same. So if I go back into ad placements here, you can see I can enable auto load, and I actually want auto load on my interstitial as well. So I'm going to turn that on just to save me writing that code. But it will work the same. Basically, for any ad format, what you call initialize, and then when the initialize call completes, it will load these ads.
So after the play of a interstitial ad, it will automatically load the next one?
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a good point. So no, it will only load it the first time. So if you want to reload it, you'll need to then write some code in your script that calls load ad for you and reference that if it doesn't load automatically on the scene. So if the scene restarts, it will load again. But if not, I think that's true. Actually, that's a good question. I'll have to get back to you on that one. I'm not sure what happens if the scene restarts. From what I've seen in my game, it seems to reload it again. And I think that's true because I'm calling initialize again. Yeah, because I have my script calling initialize, I get the callback and that calls the load again. So every time you call initialize, you'll get a load call. Does that make sense?
Yep, thanks.
Yeah, Sam, can you talk about, you might have mentioned a quick case, but just to circle back on that, are there like valid use cases for when you would not want to have auto load enabled? Is there a good reason to turn it off?
Well, banners tend to show up automatically, for example. So if you didn't want the banner to show up automatically when your scene starts, then you wouldn't have auto load enabled. Apart from that, I'm not too sure about the different use cases that people would have. I think overall it's a pretty simple feature. It just makes things easier. I can't think of any off the top of my head. I don't know if anyone else does.
I'm spitballing here, but maybe if the publisher is doing a lot of other like asset loading at the start of their app, and maybe they want to wait to have Google's SDK to do ad loading, which might create a web view and start spinning some things up. If they want to delay all of that, I guess they could turn this off and manually load at a later point, if that makes sense for them.
Yep. Yeah, definitely, if they're trying to manage resources. So now that we have a banner ad in there and we have auto load enabled, I will hit play. Now, a banner won't actually show up in the editor, but you will see in the console here that it says create banner view, load ad. So that banner is loading so that when we go to our real live demo, you'll see the banner ad showing up. Now, the other thing I'm going to add in here, just to demonstrate callbacks and like the UI aspect, is I'm going to add an interstitial. I'm going to have that be the standard interstitial. Now I want to use these callbacks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a callback from Rex. So Rex is our player, and he has an event in here, I think. Yes, game over event. So what I want to do is I want to drag my interstitial ad to that game over event. And I'm going to go to my interstitial add game object in this list, and I'm going to have show if loaded. So we have this show if loaded API for both rewarded and for interstitial. And it basically does exactly what it sounds like. If the ad is loaded, it will show it. So that's how you hook up one of those calls using this event system. And the other thing I'm going to do is over here in interstitial, I'm going to show in my callbacks, I'm going to have my on add closed API, and I'm going to drag Rex over here, and I'm going to have my player restart game. So that means that what should happen is when game over happens, we are going to show an interstitial, and then when the interstitial ad is closed, we are going to restart the game. Let's see if that's working in the editor now. Request configuration, initialize, create interstitial, load. Then we create our banner view, load, game over. Interstitial is loaded, show interstitial. So yeah, so it worked. We don't have callbacks in the Unity editor for interstitial yet. So you won't see the closed interstitial. You don't see interstitials here. But that shows us that our ads are linked up and we can go to our live demo. Any questions before I do that?
Yeah, I do have one quick question. So you kind of like dragged in Rex, and Rex had all of these like events that you could use. Is that just going to be available to everybody in their own project if they already have a Unity game, or kind of what defines what goes into that list?
Yeah, so basically anything that is in your objects list is something you could potentially call on. So any object that's in your game will have the ability to drag that into this on these callbacks. So if I add another one, for example, you can also click here. Did something come up? Oh yeah, over here. You can search for objects in here. So if I search, I get Rex, but you can also look at your ads manager. Is it in here? No, okay. Sorry. No, that doesn't work. But basically any object that's in your game, you can use. So you can look them up in those two ways.
Okay, I guess I'm asking, are those defined in like scripts for the Rex object, or is that just like all?
Yeah. So that goes back to this script here, where we have our Rex player class, and this is attached to Rex. So if you see that, that's where it was actually defined. So here, player script. And so that player script has this Unity event, which is a game over event. And so every Unity event has these callbacks. So that's that game over event here. And that's where you hook up. So then I can drag this game object, which is the interstitial ad, and it has public methods. So any public method on that object, some of these are inherited and some of them are specific to game object, but show if loaded is one. Load ad is another useful one that you would want to call. Yeah, so they're the behaviors that you can then access when you access that object. That makes sense.
That does, thanks.
Great. Okay, so let's try our demo now. I've got my screen. Now, here is my game. So we hit play. You'll see when the ad banner is loaded, it shows at the top. And then when I crash and I hit game over, I get my interstitial. And then when I close, I get to restart the game again. And that's it. So let me take over the screen again. You guys see my IDE again? So let's just quickly outline where you access all this information. You just go to the Unity Ad Placements tab, and this is where you can download the plugin, and you can follow the instructions in this guide on how to do a variety of things. So that's the demo.
That was awesome, Sam.
Thanks.
Yeah, really cool. And Ed, really great work on this.
So any other questions that we'd like to talk about?
Yes, I saw you demo with the AdMob ad units. So are ad manager publishers able to use this feature?
As much as they're able to use Unity as a whole, yeah, because basically this doesn't distinguish in terms of product. So the way that the current Unity plugin works is it does work for Ad Manager. There is, you would have noticed in the settings, there's an is Ad Manager tick box, so you don't provide your API, so you don't provide your AdMob app IDs for that one. But I believe the initialized callback should still fire, and the rest of the placements should still work. Does that sound right to you, Eric?
Yep, that sounds right. As you mentioned, the plugin, if you just use an ad manager ad unit, that works. But if you, like, we just don't support certain like ad manager specific features like custom targeting and things like that. And so that's not specific to like this ad placements, but that's just the plugin in general. So no feature loss, I guess, as a result of this feature specifically.
Is it limited to use certain banner sizes because they're not able to set it in code? They have to select from the drop-down menu. That means, are they able to get all the ad sizes available in Ad Manager?
We support custom sizes for banners there. So pretty much all the sizes, I think, that would be available, yeah.
Hey, Sam, can you talk about audience for this? Like if I already maybe use the Unity plugin today and I've already written all the code and already have my custom integration, is that the type of audience we appealing to, or are we trying to appeal to new users trying to do more codeless integrations?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think we are trying to make it easier for people to onboard with AdMob and integrate the ads more seamlessly and more in line with their experiences in developing Unity. But I don't think that it would be harmful for people to try it out if they have a small game with some code and they want to try and refactor it, make it simpler. Ed, do you have any thoughts on that?
No, I think you summed it up well. I agree. It's mainly an onboarding piece of functionality, and I think again, it's going to make your lives a lot simpler when you're trying to get started with AdMob.
Yeah, I think the Unity event system is really useful and really like helps clean things up and make things like a bit more seamless. I really enjoy working with it, so I hope that people will enjoy this paradigm of adding ads to their games as well.
Sam, can you also talk about how this ad placements might affect mediation, or if it still works with mediation?
Yeah, that's a good point. It does work with mediation. The only thing that it won't work with is if you have custom parameters that you set through ad extras, because currently at the moment we don't support loading via a specific ad request. Now that seems like a fairly useful feature to have, so I'm sure that we'll be trying to add that pretty soon. For now, if you configure only through request configuration and you have a waterfall configured that doesn't require any extra extra, I don't know what you call them, parameters configured by add extras, then it works. But if you need to use add extras for any specific networks at this point, this doesn't support that.
Got it. I think for mediation, the extra params per network is more the exception than the norm. But I think you called out a good point that I think in general, if the add request needs to be customized at all, the entire object outside of just mediation, that we don't support that right now, and would be a great feature request to build on top of this.
Yeah, we just wanted to get this feature out the door to as many people as possible, as quickly as we could. And that's why it's in open beta at the moment. So we have feedback built into the plugin. And so we'd love for you to provide some feedback. Actually, maybe I can just quickly show you where that is. So if we just go back into the IDE, if you go into your ad placements tab, you guys see this again? Just this button up here, send feedback. If you click that, you should get a form. I got this survey form. So we would love to get people's feedback on this as well. So please feel free to do that.
All right, if there's nothing else, then I guess we can close it out. We hope you found the information in this video useful, and hope you can try this out and see if this improves your Unity developer experience. So please share the feedback if you have any through that form that Sam just mentioned. Also, if you have any questions, you can drop it in the YouTube comments. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. That'll help motivate us to do more videos like this. And yeah, thanks for watching.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.